This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. The Manitoba Métis Federation is placing another big bet on Winnipeg's downtown. It has bought 2 Bell MTS office towers near Portage in Maine, plus a nearby parking lot. It is the latest in a series of investments that the MMF has made in the area. But as the CBC's Arturo Chang reports, the Métis government says it won't be the last.
The Manitoba Métis Federation has had its share of ceremonies like this one. It's been eyeing this particular purchase for a while. A 24-story office building, one of Winnipeg's tallest, and its sister space, 12 stories high. All in all, hundreds of thousands of square feet in office space, some of which will host hundreds of MMF staff.
Economically, I think the timing is right for investment for anyone. If they believe in Winnipeg, if they believe in downtown, I think it's a wise decision. President David Chartrand calls the deal a bargain. No actual figure was given, but MMF says it would put the money it's invested in the downtown over the last 6 years in the hundreds of millions. I think the message we're trying to give also is as the Métis government continues to proceed ahead with our vision, we want to see downtown continue to exist. Some of those investments include the purchase of 200 Main Street, 284th Street, and the old BMO building.
They've been a strong contributor to the downtown since their inception.
Urban policy expert Gino DiStasio says investments like this one help address a huge optics problem, even if there's still a lot of work to be done.
We can't sugarcoat that things are happening, that crime is occurring in the downtown like it's occurring everywhere. So we have to be vigilant, we have to support positive change in our downtown.
Artis Reed has owned the complex since 2011. The company says the office sector has been struggling everywhere since the pandemic. That includes downtown Winnipeg, which recently hit record high vacancy rates. Even here we've seen a 68% vacancy already, and our investment is looking at how do we change some of that. Chartrand says he's already in talks with some potential tenants. He says, with a commitment from Ottawa to wrap up Métis land claim negotiations soon, this investment is just the beginning. Arturo Chang, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, to our healthcare system now, we're learning that the highest paid executive at Shared Health last year only worked for 4 months, but got paid hundreds of thousands of dollars more than the previous year. One expert says big severances are the cost of doing business with top executives, but as Ian Fraze tells us, his compensation is still raising eyebrows.
Last year, Shared Health executives got pay raises all around, but the biggest was for someone who only worked for several months. Former Shared Health CEO Adam Top made $331,000 in 2022. The next year, compensation disclosures say his pay soared to just over $603,000, but he only worked until April. Shared Health says he resigned, but a business expert says Top's pay jump suggests he was fired.
Mr. Top was most certainly paid money owed to him based on his employment contract.
Sean McDonald teaches business at the University of Manitoba. He understands the public outrage around severance payments, but says it protects executives who can be fired at whim.
If we're not paying severance and treating our CEOs well, there's not going to be a top talented CEO to follow because they know that they're in a risky job.
A union leader doesn't see it the same way.
That's a lot of money at the top, as we call it, but not going to the frontline workers.
Other executives also saw raises in the tens of thousands of dollars. One manager saw his year-over-year pay increase by $60,000 in 2023. Another pocketed an extra $57,000. That's largely because non-unionized executives in 2023 got the same pay raises and back pay as unionized healthcare staff. Those workers got retroactive pay increases after their wages were frozen for years. But McDonald says some of those executives don't deserve the same pay bumps. They aren't caring for patients directly.
The market for managers, with all due respect, is not nearly as keen or hot.
Health Minister Zoma Seguera says the government is still focused on cutting bureaucratic costs in healthcare. Earlier this year, Shared Health cut 24 administrative jobs. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Now, Ian has also been looking into today how some rural Manitoba healthcare staff say they are feeling overlooked. We'll bring you more on that story coming up a little bit later in the show. Searchers have found the body of a missing boater in northern Manitoba. 28-year-old Rayden Dick was found in the water by volunteer searchers yesterday. He was among 3 men who went missing on Lake Winnipeg on June 27th. The body of 31-year-old Tyler Ballantyne was found in late June, but searchers are still looking for 29-year-old Delaney McGilvery. The 3 men set off by boat to lift nets from the western side of Lake Winnipeg near Grand Rapids. Mississippiwistic Cree Nation Chief Heidi Cook says they are holding out hope that McGilvery will be found soon.
We maintain hope, but it gets challenging the more time that passes. Have hope for recovery is incredibly important, and I think we're going to see increase in people getting out there on the lake to try and bring home Delaney.
Dive teams from across Manitoba and beyond have been helping in that search on Lake Winnipeg. They hadn't found any other items that belonged to the men as of yet, including the boat that they were in. Well, billion-dollar contracts aren't just for Major League Baseball. The City of Winnipeg just handed one out. And as the CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, one city councillor says the city should have taken longer to make the decision.
The final council meeting before the summer break. The mayor attended remotely. He was stuck in New York City, where he attended a mayor's conference.
Was supposed to fly out last night. Many of the flights, including mine, were canceled late last night because of weather.
Gillingham's absence put a wry spin on a council debate about mandatory in-person attendance at council seminars. But that wasn't the main event today. The most important vote of the day took place over the lunch hour at a special meeting of the Water, Waste and Environment Committee to award a contract that will eventually result in $1 billion worth of construction. The work will be done here at the North End Water Pollution Control Centre, the largest of the city's 3 sewage treatment plants. Work has started on the first phase of upgrades ordered by the province. The next phase will cost $1 billion. It involves building a treatment plant to convert this stuff, partly treated solid waste, into a nutrient-rich product called biosolids, which can be used as fertilizer.
I'm not afraid to make decisions. What I like to do is make decisions with the best information I can get.
Councillor Brian Mays was the only member of the Water and Waste Committee to vote against handing out a $95 million design contract that serves as a precursor for the rest of the $1 billion job. Mays said the city should have taken more time.
We're hiring a chief construction officer whose job is going to be to advise directly members of council about big construction projects. Nothing's getting bigger than this.
Ramona Cooey, who speaks for mechanical contractors in Manitoba, fears the city made a mistake.
We had some very serious questions that needed answers. We hope that the council did get those answers.
The award went to a construction consortium called Red River Biosolids. There was only one other competing bid. This decision of Water and Waste Committee doesn't move on to EPC and Council. It's a done deal. That means this $1 billion project is moving ahead. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
More than a quarter of the boaters that were stopped last month on the Trans-Canada Highway failed a watercraft inspection. Federal fisheries officials set up a pop-up inspection near the Ontario border in June. Most violators, they say, had not cleaned and drained their boats. 5 were contaminated with zebra mussels. Nobody was fined, but violators were shown how to properly clean and drain their watercraft. The penalty for not draining a boat is $237. It's almost $1,300 if you're caught transporting zebra mussels. More areas of the city are slated to be fogged for mosquitoes tonight. City crews were able to spray 10 zones last night, and another 13 are on the list. Fogging begins at 9:30 in the evening and will go until 6:30 tomorrow morning, weather permitting. Buffer zones will be respected. Now you can find a full list of the neighborhoods that are being sprayed tonight on the city's website. And that leads us to a look at our weather forecast and a nice hot day today if you're a fan of the heat. And we're looking at the heat really cranking up as we get into the next few days, and the humidity as well. Let's have a look at the heat warning that remains in place for much of northern Manitoba, Thompson, Norway House, Flin Flon, Lynn Lake, into that northwestern corner of the province. We're not only looking at highs in the high 20s, low 30s, but we're also looking at overnight lows staying warm as we get through the next couple of days at least. Satellite and radar showing a few little pop-up areas of isolated thunderstorm, particularly sort of around Lake Winnipeg there. You can see even a few raindrops sort of in the Swan River area. Expect that to kind of move out. Most of that moving to the south and to the east, so shouldn't see any of that in Winnipeg today, but we are looking at a better chance of some thunderstorms as we get through the day tomorrow. So still under the influence of high pressure. That does start to move out as we get through Friday, but that high pressure ridge that is really bringing heat to Western Canada remains in place, and that's what's going to drive up our temperatures over the next few days at least. Into the morning tomorrow, we do have the risk of thunderstorms, generally isolated in nature as we get through the day. The best chance for that coming as we get through the later part of Friday into the early hours of Saturday morning. And then I like to call it rinse and repeat because we're looking at much the same as we get through the later hours of Saturday afternoon into the evening. A risk of thunderstorms once again, and then back to a mainly sunny sky for the south. Maybe some rain, though, as we head into northern Manitoba through Sunday. Right now, temperatures look like this. 30s in Lynn Lake and Tadoule Lake. Thompson at 28, as is Swan River. 26s in Brandon and Winnipeg right now, and 27 in Morden. Overnight tonight, looking at a mostly clear 17 degrees in Winnipeg. West winds at 10 overnight. We're looking at southwest 10 in the morning tomorrow. First thing, 19 degrees under a sunny sky. And there's that risk of an isolated thunderstorm and a humid one tomorrow in the afternoon, 30 degrees with winds at about 10 kilometers an hour. Looking at temperatures, high 20s, low 30s across the south as we get through your Friday. That should read 28 degrees in Dryden, 27 with a mainly sunny sky, with maybe some air quality concerns through parts of northern Manitoba tomorrow. Saturday, 29 with a chance of an isolated thunderstorm through the afternoon again. 30 on Sunday, and we're looking at a partly cloudy 29 degrees as we get through your Monday. I will have a full look at your 7-day forecast and, of course, the dog walking forecast coming up later in the show. Well, in a little more than a week, a former Winnipeg phys ed teacher will be in Paris to officiate at the Olympics. Jane Edstrom will be a gold referee for track and field. Her first Olympics was in Rio in 2016, and she was also in Tokyo in 2021. That was a different experience, she says, because COVID restrictions meant there couldn't be any people watching. Edstrom says she's looking forward to hearing the cheers from the stands.
I'm very excited for the athletes to have the support of the spectators, their family and friends can finally join them there. While Tokyo, they were very fortunate to have a competition, but without those support systems. So it'll be great to have fans in the stands again.
Still to come tonight, 2 people have died after drinking plant-based milk that was contaminated with Listeria. We'll have more on that and how that recall has affected a Winnipeg business. Plus, we have much more local news ahead for you after the break. Stay with us. Well, turning back to our healthcare system now, this time in rural Manitoba, some rural healthcare staff say they are feeling overlooked. For some of them, their wages are similar to what restaurant and grocery store workers make. And that has their union urging the NDP government to act now amid a worsening staff shortage. Ian Fraze has the story.
Some healthcare workers are feeling left out.
Sometimes the workers who work in dietary, who work to feed and to work to do those jobs and clean the hospital are overlooked.
Kyle Ross with the Manitoba Government and General Employees Union says low wages for these staff are proving their point.
Our workers have been left behind in the past, and the vacancy rates show that.
In Prairie Mountain Health Region, the union says more than 30% of healthcare aid jobs are unfilled, so the region is relying on private agencies more and more. Last year, Prairie Mountain spent around $21 million on private healthcare aids, 4 times more than the year before.
There's many care homes, there's many places that are using basically exclusively agency staffing rather than filling the public systems.
The starting wage for healthcare aides in the public system is around $20. It's lower for other support workers in healthcare.
You start at $17 an hour for working as a custodian, while McDonald's in Swan River is hiring at $17 an hour. So where are you going to go? These jobs aren't competitive.
MGEU wants the government to make improvements. The health minister is confident the next collective bargaining agreement will be better.
We're very hopeful that we'll continue to make sure that there are agreements that are signed that work in the best interest of frontline healthcare workers.
The last contract for these workers expired in the spring. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
2 people have died after drinking plant-based milk contaminated with Listeria. They were among 12 people who fell ill after consuming the milk. CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick has more on the outbreak.
A little over a week after some almond, oat, and coconut beverages were recalled because of Listeria contamination, news that 2 people have died because of the infections. Health officials confirmed the deaths were in Ontario, but would not provide any other details. There have been 10 confirmed cases of listeriosis in the province, 1 in Quebec and 1 in Nova Scotia. It will be a challenge to determine the exact size and cause of the outbreak. One of the cases dates back to last August. Several people got sick in June.
It is a bit like a crime case, is that the longer you leave it, the more the trail goes cold.
Some people may experience mild symptoms of fever, diarrhea, and vomiting and never know they were infected with the bacteria. People who are pregnant or elderly are more at risk of severe illness. It can take weeks for symptoms to show up after consuming contaminated food.
Because this can have such a gap between the time you ate the thing and by the time you got sick, that it can be harder for them to trace where the contamination came from.
The beverage manufacturer Danone Canada says it's working with authorities to investigate the outbreak. It calls the deaths devastating and said their sincere sympathies go out to the families and loved ones during this difficult time. More than a dozen Silk and Great Value brand products have been pulled from store shelves across Canada. In 2008, there was a Listeria outbreak at a Maple Leaf food plant linked to deli meats. 22 people died. That outbreak prompted changes to the food safety system, but experts say there's no foolproof way to prevent and detect infection.
Every time you take a food and process it, you increase the chance of bacteria getting into it.
As investigators search for the cause of this outbreak, consumers who purchase the products are advised to throw them out or return them to a store. A full list of the affected products is on the Canadian Food Inspection Agency's website. Megan Fitzpatrick, CBC News, Toronto.
A Winnipeg business has also been impacted by that plant-based milk recall. Ice cream maker Chez Bon says the almond beverage they use in one of their dairy-free flavors was included in that recall. They are now recalling some of their Dave Dark Cocoa flavor. If you purchased a pint with the lot number on your screen, 2024052001, you should return it to Chez Bon for a full refund or exchange. All other batches of that flavor are not included in the recall. The ice cream shop tells CBC only 1 batch was affected, and most of the affected product was removed from stores before it was sold. Federated Co-op says it is still trying to get all of its systems back up online after a cyber attack last month. It impacted inventory in its grocery stores, took down its website, and temporarily closed cardlock fuel stations. Co-op says while its websites are now back up, online shopping is still unavailable, and there are still signs at some Co-op grocery stores apologizing for reduced inventory because of the cyber attack. Canada's military has a new boss. General Jenny Carignan stepped into the role today.
I believe in our Reg Force and Reserve Force members who serve their country with pride and courage, and in our public service professionals whose contribution is essential to the success of the Canadian Forces.
Carignan addressed military officers and dignitaries during a ceremony at the Canadian War Museum. She takes up the post at a challenging time. There are ongoing concerns about the military's recruitment and what many describe as a toxic culture. The forces are also facing spending pressures from NATO allies, plus growing challenges in the Arctic. General Carignan takes over from General Wayne Eyre, who is retiring after more than 40 years of service. We're taking another break right now. When we come back, I'll have your 7-day forecast and a daily lift you'll like. If you're a fan of food, stay with us.
I would recommend Indigenous pathways to other Indigenous storytellers because we can amplify each other's voices. In order for the world to change, we have to speak up and create that change. And CBC is now listening to us, so we may as well scream it from the rooftops because we need the world to hear who we are, why we're important, and the truth of our history, our people, our culture, and how that still stands today.
Indigenous storytellers apply to Indigenous pathways in Winnipeg today.
All right, the dog walking forecast for your Friday. This is Riley. Thank you, Jean, for sending this picture in. I know that Riley is very, very closely watching the weather for tomorrow with a chance of an isolated thunderstorm, feeling closer to 40 with the humidity through the afternoon. So morning, probably your best bet for a dog walk tomorrow. Especially, I've mentioned it before, the pavement gets really hot on the little pause through the afternoon hours. So we're looking at temperatures really right around 30 as we get through the weekend. A little bit of a reprieve from the humidity as we get into early next week, but look what happens as we get back to Wednesday, Thursday, back up to feeling closer or above 40. Well, it may sound like baloney, but the staple item at the breakfast table, at suppers, barbecues, and of course socials is causing a rush to stores in Atlantic Canada. Why people are filling up with cartloads of baloney is our daily lift. So PharmaSafe stores in Cape Breton are hosting Baloney Bonanza. People have been asked to submit their favorite stories and recipes. The prize is a $50 gift card and, get this, a year's worth of bologna. And in case you're wondering, that's 130 pounds of meat.
Bologna pizza, bologna casserole, bologna soup, bologna tacos.
I'd like to buy the sliced bologna instead of like the big roll of bologna. I just find it easier to work with.
It's like one of those things coming home. Fond memories of having bologna sandwiches, fried bologna, at lunchtime. Yeah, it's just a warm feeling.
So it is all for a good cause. They're going to be putting all these recipes into a cookbook centered around the deli meat. 100% of the sales from that book will be donated to food banks in Atlantic Canada. Our producer, Holly, and I were reminiscing about how that really brings back childhood memories, thinking about bologna. Or maybe you're meat-shouldered at a social. I don't know. We'll see you tomorrow.